I just resigned from my dream job after investigating for disability discrimination. Let's talk about exactly what happened. I'm going to make this video in a couple parts so I can give you a clear timeline of what unfolded and how. And I'm doing this for two reasons. Reason number one is I want to show other disabled people what can happen to them so that they can be on the lookout for these types of behaviors from employers. We're finally starting to recognize the way that people can be discriminatory in the interviewing process, in the hiring process, but it's sort of the Wild West out here still once you're hired. And I never thought this would happen to me, but here I am. So I just want to do this for awareness, and I want to show employers that we are wising up. We know what you're doing, and we're not going to settle for it. So let's talk about exactly what happened. For those of you who don't know, I'm a special education teacher. I have a master's degree, very certified. I teach primarily students with learning disabilities, but I have had students across the spectrum of disability with a variety of diagnoses. So that's what I do for work, and this video is going to be about a school district. So at the end of last school year, I decided that I wanted to leave the district where I had done my student teaching, where I had begun as a teacher. I just was disagreeing with some of the changes they were making on the special education side. We'll call that District C. They're not terribly important to this story. I decided I wanted to leave District C, and I started applying for jobs in February. So I'm applying for jobs. I did a couple interviews with District A. They are the main characters of this story. I realized that I didn't want the positions that I interviewed for, but it was a good opportunity to dust off the interview skills, and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we apply for things and we're like, ooh, I actually really don't want to do that. So I interviewed for a couple jobs in District A. Then I did an interview with District B. And I actually did get offered a job in District B, but I turned it down. Knowing what I know now, wouldn't have done that. But I turned it down because I had interviewed at the special education office, and what happened is District B placed me at a school where I had never been, where I had never met the administration, where they didn't know me, I didn't know them, and the commute was going to be a bit of an issue. So I said, you know what, unfortunately, I would love to, but no. So I turned down a job with District B. I have 2 interviews with District A. I keep interviewing with District A. I have 2 more interviews. I am told no. So that's a total of 5 interviews between February and the middle of May. It's now about May 15th-ish. It's a Saturday morning. I'm sleeping. I get a call. I decline it because ain't nobody need to hear what I sound like when I first wake up. So I decline the call, and then I check my voicemail when I do wake up, and it's the assistant principal from a middle school in District A. He's asking me if middle school would ever be an option for me. He has seen my files in the HR system, and he wants to know if I would ever do an interview with them. I think about it. I take all weekend. I plug the address into like 4 different transit systems and look and see how I would get there. The commute is going to be an issue because the bus only goes a small fraction of the way, but I have done 5 interviews at this point. And I really wanted to get into the middle school space. I had been teaching elementary. Middle school was something that fascinated me. I thought, let's do it. The worst thing that can happen is I just practice my interview skills even more. So I call them back on Monday morning, and I schedule an interview for that Wednesday. Wednesday comes, I go to the interview. A friend from my old school actually volunteered at the last minute to drive me. It was sort of an impromptu thing. It was really nice because I didn't have to deal with any of the anxiety of taking a ride share. I didn't have to worry about getting dropped off in a new location. And it was really nice to have somebody that I knew and that I trusted to wait with me while the interview was starting to kind of just make things feel a little bit better. So I get to the school, I'm there a little bit early, I'm waiting for probably 10-15 minutes, kind of vibe checking the place, seeing like, can I imagine myself here, all the things. And then I get pulled back for the interview. Now, when you interview for a special ed position, it's not uncommon to be interviewed by a panel, and that was the case in the interview that I did. I had the school psychologist in there. I had the special ed department chair in there. I had, I think, one or two resource teachers, and I had the assistant principal. So it was a big panel, and everybody's taking turns asking me questions. It felt more like a conversation than an interview. At this point, this was interview number 6 of the season, okay? So my interview skills were well and truly dusted off. I was very good at interviewing at this point. So it felt like a conversation. We were joking, we were laughing, we were just talking about things. The things that stood out to me from this particular interview, aside from the fact that it was a really good vibe, were that I mentioned having an IEP as a K-12 student, because that informs my perspective as a special education teacher. That informs the way I do my work, and I have a right to talk about my experiences if I want to disclose my disability if I want to. So I organically brought up the fact that I had been on an IEP. And not only that, but the assistant principal who was interviewing me was very candid and mentioned that he too had had an IEP as a kid. And like that stuck with me because normally administrators, when they're interviewing you, are not that candid. They don't normally share that kind of information. So I have the interview. I'm feeling great, riding really high. A week passes. I'm at Disney World. I'm in the middle of the Mickey's PhilharMagic show, and my phone starts ringing because I am a moron and I forgot to turn off my ringer. And I look and I see that it's the assistant principal, and my heart's like, don't, skipping beats, beating really fast. So I can't get out of that show because I'm stuck there. So I just turn off my ringer. The show keeps going. 5 minutes later, my phone's ringing again. It's the HR department with District A. I'm like, oh man, this is getting really good. So I get out of the show finally, and of course a car is driving by right now. I get out of the show finally, and I go and I'm sitting down, and I'm so mad because there's this little like exercise with Stitch thing for kids going on by me, so I can't call them back. But I got a hiring contract. District A, that school that I had interviewed for, really wanted to hire me. So I call them back. I finalize the paperwork to leave from District C. We're doing great. Everything is fabulous. I onboard with District A a couple weeks later, so I fill out all my paperwork to get myself set up and into their system. The onboarding appointment goes really well. About a week after my onboarding appointment, I get a call from the HR. I felt bad because I made the HR person a little bit uncomfortable because she said, hey, I observed that you were blinking in your badge picture. Do you want us to retake another one? And I said, actually, I have a condition called nystagmus, and I don't have really control of the muscles of my eyes. So that's going to be what it's going to be. I'm really sorry. And she was like, okay, bye, and hung up really fast. But other than that, it was a really smooth onboarding process. It was fabulous. And then, we just had to finish out the summer and wait for the first day of work. I'll see you in part 2.